prairie evening stretched long across the horizon, painting the sky in fading strokes of crimson and gold, the kind of sunset that promised peace to tired ranch hands and weary travelers. But peace was fragile, and in that fragile moment lay the seeds of disaster. Amelia Carson, with her auburn hair catching the last of the sun's glow, worked quietly in the old barn at the edge of the ranch. The place smelled of hay, dust, and the comforting musk of horses. She loved this hour, the stillness before nightfall, when she could brush down her mare and think about nothing but the rhythm of her strokes and the warmth of the animal beside her. Yet as she hummed softly to herself, she had no idea that she was being watched. A figure lingered in the shadows outside the barn, their face hidden beneath the brim of a hat pulled low. The soft scrape of boots on the dirt was masked by the distant call of a coyote, and Amelia's world remained blissfully unaware. The figure moved with intention, circling to the back where a heavy wooden door creaked slightly ajar. From their pocket came a flask, not of water or whiskey, but of kerosene, its sharp odor leaking into the night air. They poured it carefully along the outer boards of the barn, each drop soaking into the old wood like poison into veins. With a strike of flint, sparks danced and caught, flames licking hungrily upward. Then, with a swift push, the figure slammed the barn door shut and locked it tight with an iron bar. Inside, Amelia startled at the sound. Her humming died on her lips as she turned, brushing strands of hair from her face. "Hello?" she called, expecting perhaps one of the ranch hands playing a prank. Silence answered her. She frowned and walked to the door, tugging at the handle. It didn't move. She tugged harder, then slammed her shoulder against it, but the wood held firm. "Very funny," she muttered, though unease tightened in her chest. That was when she caught at the faintest curl of smoke, seeping through the cracks between the boards. Her heart stuttered. The horses sensed it too. Her mare snorted nervously, stamping her hooves, eyes rolling white with fear. Amelia rushed to calm her, running a hand down her neck, whispering reassurances she didn't quite believe herself. But then came the unmistakable sound, the crackle of fire. She spun toward the far wall, and her breath caught. Through the gaps in the wooden boards, a glow spread like dawn turned deadly, orange and red flaring against the darkening sky. The barn was on fire. Panic surged through her veins. She darted to the windows, too small. She grabbed at tools, too weak to break through the beams. Smoke thickened quickly, filling her lungs, making her cough until tears sprang to her eyes. She screamed, pounded on the walls, her fists throbbing against unyielding wood. "Help! Somebody help!" But the ranch was spread wide, and at this hour, workers had already retired for supper in the main house. Her cries were swallowed by the wind. Her mind raced. She couldn't give in to panic, not yet. She pulled her skirt free from where it tangled around her boots, grabbed a pitchfork and rammed it into the boards. The wood splintered but did not give. She tried again, sweat mixing with soot on her brow, the heat building as flames climbed higher. The horses shrieked, their hooves pounding in terror. She wanted to free them, but the smoke grew thicker by the second. Choking her, stealing her strength, she stumbled, coughing violently, eyes watering so badly she could hardly see. Memories flashed in her mind, her father teaching her to ride, her mother's laughter drifting through warm summer evenings, the promise she had made to herself to never let anyone break her spirit. She clenched her jaw, forcing herself upright. If this was to be her end, she would fight to the last breath. But deep down, fear whispered cruelly. Was this it? Would she be consumed in a blaze no one knew she was trapped in? And then, beyond the roar of the flames, she thought she heard it, the distant thunder of hooves. At first she thought it a trick of her fading senses, the fire crackling in her ears, the pounding of her own terrified heartbeat. But it grew louder, steadier, the unmistakable rhythm of a horse charging hard. She staggered toward the nearest crack in the wall, pressing her face against it. Through the smoke, through the blaze, she caught a glimpse of a rider silhouetted against the setting sun. A broad-brimmed hat, shoulders squared with determination. Reins held tight as the horse surged forward. Hope flared inside her chest, a spark brighter than the fire around her. The pounding of hooves cut through the roar of flames as the cowboy urged his stallion closer. Smoke curling upward like the breath of some furious beast. His jaw was set, his eyes narrowed against the heat, and the bandana tied around his neck was pulled up over his face to ward off the choking air. He had seen fires before, prairie grass set alight by lightning storms, but never like this. This was no accident. This was deliberate, cruel, and it was swallowing the barn whole. As he drew near, the smell of kerosene confirmed his suspicion. Someone had meant for this to happen. He dismounted in a single motion, boots hitting the ground with a dull thud, and ran to the heavy door. The iron bar across it was hot to the touch, but he didn't hesitate. He seized it with his gloved hands, teeth gritting as the heat seared through leather. With a grunt of effort, he wrenched it free and kicked the door open, smoke pouring out in a furious cloud that stung his eyes and clawed at his throat. Inside, chaos reigned. Horses screamed in terror, thrashing against their stalls as the fire ate through beams and straw. Through the haze he spotted her, Amelia, her face pale beneath streaks of soot, her hands raw from pounding against the wood. She stumbled toward him, coughing violently, her hair wild and her body trembling with exhaustion. For a split second, relief flashed across her features, but it was quickly replaced with fear as a burning rafter cracked and fell between them, sparks exploding like stars across the floor. Without thinking, the cowboy charged forward, ducking under the falling timber and sweeping her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, but limp, her strength nearly gone. He pulled her close, shielding her with his body as ash rained down. "Hold on," he growled through the bandana, his voice rough with smoke. She clung weakly to him, her fingers clutching at his vest as though letting go would mean surrendering to the fire. He moved quickly, dodging debris, guiding her toward the door. But the flames seemed determined to claim them both. The roof groaned overhead, timbers blackening as the structure threatened to collapse. His stallion whinnied outside, hooves pawing frantically at the dirt as if urging them to hurry. Every step felt like a battle, heat pressing in, smoke blinding him, the barn itself groaning under its own destruction. At last they burst out into the open air, and for a brief moment the cool evening breeze kissed their faces. Amelia gasped, sucking in lungfuls of clean air, though her chest heaved painfully with every breath. But there was no time to linger. Behind them the fire roared louder, spreading with a vengeance, embers leaping toward the dry grass nearby. The cowboy lifted her onto his horse, his movements sure and swift despite the chaos. She tried to protest, weakly shaking her head, but he hushed her with a firm look. "We ride," he said, swinging up behind her in one smooth motion. With a sharp nudge of his heels, the stallion bolted forward, surging away from the inferno. Smoke trailed after them, sparks chasing them like angry spirits. But the horse was strong, muscles bunching as it carried them across the open field. Amelia clung to the saddle horn, her eyes wide with lingering terror, but she dared a glance back at the barn. The flames had consumed it entirely now, the structure collapsing inward with a deafening crash, sending a shower of embers into the sky. Her heart twisted. She had spent so many hours there, caring for the animals, finding peace in its quiet shelter. Now it was gone, turned to ashes in the span of minutes. The cowboy's arm wrapped securely around her, anchoring her against the fear that still coursed through her veins. She leaned into him, drawing strength from his steadiness. She wanted to thank him, to speak, but her throat burned too raw from smoke, and the words caught in her chest. He didn't need her thanks, not yet. His focus was on getting her as far from the blaze as possible, his eyes scanning the horizon for any further threat. Whoever had done this might still be nearby, watching, waiting. When at last they slowed near the edge of a creek, the cowboy dismounted and helped Amelia down. She swayed on her feet, still weak, and he steadied her with both hands. Her cheeks were streaked with soot. Her lips cracked, but her eyes, though tired, burned with the same fire that had threatened to consume her. "You're safe now," he said, voice low but firm, as though speaking the words would make them true. She nodded, though a shiver ran through her. The fire had not only destroyed a building, it had stolen her sense of security. Whoever had locked her inside had meant for her to die, and that knowledge cut deeper than the smoke in her lungs. The cowboy crouched by the creek, soaking his bandana in the cool water and pressing it gently against her face to ease her breathing. "Breathe slow," he instructed. "Let it out steady." She obeyed, closing her eyes, the cold cloth soothing against her raw skin. For a few moments, the only sounds were the gentle rush of the creek and the distant crackle of flame still devouring what was left of the barn. Then she opened her eyes and whispered, her voice hoarse but steady. "Why? Who would do this?" He didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted back toward the ranch, his jaw tightening. "Someone with a grudge," he said finally. "Someone who thought the fire would cover their tracks." His hand brushed instinctively against the revolver at his hip. a silent promise that this wasn't over. Amelia followed his gaze, her own fear hardening into something sharper. Whoever had tried to end her life had failed, and she would not rest until she knew why. The night settled heavy around them, stars pricking the dark sky like distant watchful eyes. Amelia leaned against the cowboy, her body weary, but her spirit unbroken. He glanced down at her, admiration flickering in his